Heyo, I mentioned yesterday when I was making the knife grip and basic template video that I would do a one about our ice pick grip, downward grip. Thought I'd go ahead and do it. So yesterday we were talking about hammer grip, right? Whether to apply thumb. We talked about that for a second, all that, right? Our angles of attack, pokes and stabs and grabs and all that kind of stuff, right? So today I just wanted to talk for a minute about the downward grip, okay? So something I'd mentioned yesterday was the difference between having the knife out, the blade edge out, and the blade edge in. Okay, so with this, what I'm going to start with is the concept of having this edge out. Okay, it's a little more common, I think, when it comes to this kind of grip, but again, these things lead to different functionality. So your basic template still applies, but it changes a little, right? And I'll make there's a specific template for this that I teach, but really this angle makes sense, right? I can do my diagonal X downward, right? But when I go to do my diagonal X, my backhand, right? This is weird. Right? My arm is in one of the weakest mechanical positions that there is, right? If you guys do jiu-jitsu or any sort of submission grappling, like this is an arm lock, right? So it's a really weak position for your shoulder and your elbow to be in, right? So this downward slash kind of makes sense, right? What happens is instead of doing a downward angle, right? I'm going slash, then this flips to come straight across. It's horizontal, and even that's weird, okay? So you can kind of zap, zap, right? Now here's the difference. Instead of downward angles, upward angles make a little more sense, okay? Especially on this side. This one is definitely a thing, right? This is kind of a thing. That's definitely a thing. This is not really a thing at all, but this is okay, right? Running that line up. So basically what you're doing with your first two is using upward diagonals instead of downward ones. Okay, so what it does is this: here, 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 right? I'm still kind of making an X. Can go down, across, up, right? I can play with those angles a little bit, but it is not nearly as fluid and capable as this thing, right? So here, blade out, it's a functionality for intercepting cuts, right? It's for outward stabs. Even then, that edge is kind of weird, right? If I make my cut and I use this to hook and pass, I'll talk about that when I have a partner here to kind of work with you. Here and here, it allows for strikes, rips, some other things that you're actually going to drill and do, right? But this downward grip with the edge out, it lacks a lot of the functionality that you get with edge out here. All right, now let's flip it. Edge in. You put the edge in, now all of a sudden you're dealing less with a slashing weapon and more with a stabbing weapon. Okay? Like I said yesterday, when you do this, that edge becomes part of the natural motion of your tear, right? Hack, hack. Now my X makes sense coming down, but now it doesn't make sense coming up, right? Because there's no edge back here, right? Up doesn't make as much sense. So again, you're losing a lot of functionality by turning your knife over, okay? Again, this is more aggressive. It does allow you more hammering power, right? Whereas this allows for more dexterity and body power to be used in your thrusts and your angles, things like that, right? I can do this, I can do this. I get both these angles when I'm like this, right? I get both of them when I'm like this, right? This is stick stuff, right? Make little, you know, I turn it this way, I can make this. But right there's the weirdness. I flip that edge inside towards my wrist. Now anything I hit with it, I'm going to tear. I can come from this side and rip, right? Hit and rip. I can hit from this side and tear down. I can even bring it up and pull, right? This is not nearly as defensive a posture and a grip as you're going to get with this, okay? So if I've got this edge in, I'm doing some nasty work, all right? So targeting with this is going to be a little different, right? I may use the back of this blade to counter and hook, parry, hook, counter, tap, stab, right? Whereas if I have this one, it's going to cut as it intercepts and hooks as I pass, right? So again, this will make a little more sense when I have a partner to do this with, and I'll show you. Right, but just the concepts, right? This is more aggressive. Bang, 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 right? I'm using stabby motions. This isn't really cutty motion stuff, right? Okay, with that edge out. I'm not saying that if you don't have like a clip point on your knife, that functions pretty well, but with this backside, right? Even if I have my edge out, now my backside's dull here, I can still use it as a tool, but it's not going to cut or lacerate or anything like that, right? If you're going to stab something and you stab with the tip, with the reverse edge in, you're not using the whole functionality of the blade, right? Bang, like, I mean, it works. You're going to punch through maybe a t-shirt, but if that's a hard leather jacket, guy's wearing a motorcycle jacket, denim, something like that, that's going to punch through because that edge is going to lash as it comes out, right? But with this one, a little different when it comes to your stabs. Now, there's some specific things I'll show you where this is used to parry an attack, get you to the outside, and then you're driving it in, basically right here, and then pushing that edge all the way out, right? Whereas with this one, the same motion, the same targeting and everything, I would plunge it in and pull it towards me, right? Or turn it over and make a C motion as I tear outward, right? So there's that, okay? You're losing some functionality if you put your blade down. What you're gaining is some aggressiveness, some ability to cycle and hit and chop and smash, and you just don't slash as much, okay? So, having said that, right, there's something to be said about the cutout. Okay. And again, this is, disclaimer. These are the things that you consciously do to add another level of deadliness to what you're doing, right? If I just poke somebody and pull straight out, the knife only goes as deep as it goes, and it only gets and that cut or that stab wound only gets as wide as the blade, right? Okay. So considering that, if I pop that in, right, like I was saying yesterday, when we do this thing, right, we're going for a straight shot. Okay. Stab in, pull out. What if I stab in, and instead of pulling out, I make what's called a C-cut? Right? In and around. Right? I'm getting this blade into my target, and then I'm doing that there. A C cut. I'm making a C with it. Okay. What that does is creates a massive amount of damage in a small area, whereas this blade's only going to take up so much space and do so much damage. This, basically, if you stab in sideways and you cut a vein or an artery, number one, that person's in trouble, right? But if I make that C cut, if this is the line of that artery, I have passed through that artery twice. I have bisected, is that the word, bisect? I didn't dissect it, that would be once, right? Basically, I've given the doctor a lot of problems to work with, right? Because now they have to connect either two pieces, or they have to take the middle piece out and connect the two ends together, which is very, very difficult with elastic veins and things like that, right? It's very hard, right? That's some bad damage. Okay, imagine that to a femoral artery here, right? To a brachial artery under your arm, to organs here, right? It almost doubles the damage that you do. Okay, so if you reflexively train to C-cut your way out of things, you could be creating more damage than you are consciously aware of, right? Slashes are great defensive things. Stabs do real damage, right? If you slash, the only place that you can really slash within, say, an inch or two deep, maybe even 3 inches in some places, the only place where that's really, really going to be a deadly thing is this neck area, some very, very small vulnerable areas under the arm, and near the femoral area, right? Those slashes, like, I could cut all the way across my, what's of a fat guy? You cut all the way across his belly and he's got 5 inches of belly before you even get to an abdominal wall, right? But if I stab in through it and then cut out with that C cut, I'm cutting into a lot more stuff. I'm doing a lot more damage, right? So my slashes are almost a defensive tactic. Stabs are much less defensive. Okay? They're much more, I'm trying to end the fight. I'm trying to poke holes in the opponent so they lose blood faster. Right? Because the fight don't end when you hit them. Right? Like we say with guns, it's not a disintegrator ray. I shoot them square in the chest, they're going to keep coming. Right? At least momentum is going to carry them. And if they've got a deadly weapon in their hand, they're going to hit you with all the force of a limp body coming forward, and that's a lot of power, right? So the same with knives. I get a heart shot, they're still going to function for a little bit. It'll be a lot shorter period than if I hit this artery here, or if I hit this here, it's bleed out time, right? The object of these is to create as much mechanical damage, right? Tendons, ligaments, fingers, things that make them function as a tool, right? If they are missing 2 fingers, they ain't holding on to their knife. If you have slashed the inside of their wrist or this nerve bundle right here, they're not going to bleed out, but their arm's going to go numb, or their grip is going to just go because there's no tension on these tendons, right? That's why you teach people to block outside. There's a lot less important stuff out here than there is in here, right? I don't want to be doing this with my blocks. I want to be doing this, right? So, making those cuts after you've stabbed is some deadly intense shit. Be aware. Okay? Same with these. If I plunge a knife in between the ribs and my edge is out and I push it all the way through instead of just straight retracting it, I'm cutting. I'm not just going poke, out. I'm going stab, rip. There's a lot of stuff in there. You got your knife long enough, you get it very deep enough, you're going to hit a kidney, you're going to hit an adrenal gland, you might even catch their liver, you might even clip their lung. Depends on your angle and all that. You have to be conscious of what you're doing. Even under duress. Just because there's deadly things going on to you doesn't mean that you get a free pass. All right? In my opinion. Legally and morally are 2 separate avenues. What is legal sometimes may not be moral, and what is moral may not sometimes be legal. Immoral and illegal, the same, right? So, the legal system you have to deal with words and with this kind of stuff. Like, look, Your Honor, like, yeah, I did stab him, but I did not cut all the way through because I was afraid I would do deadly damage, right? I did not want to do that, right? You know, the manslaughter thing. Well, did you mean to kill him? No, I didn't mean to kill him. Well, all of a sudden, you just set yourself up for manslaughter. I defended myself until the threat was ended. You got to use the right words legally. Morally, it's how you sleep at night, right? Oh. Neighbors, morally, you go to bed at night, if you can justify whatever you did to yourself, you're good, right? That's between you and your higher power or not higher power, you and your conscience, whatever, right? If you think you can, you can. If you think you should, you should. If you think you did, you did. Okay? So you have to keep that in mind. All right. Got to keep that in mind. All right? So, with this edge in, again, you're dealing with something that your natural motion creates a rip. Guard dog. This creates a rip in that natural motion. If I hit from this side, this pulls through my whole motion. If you put your knife like this, you should be consciously aware that you have escalated the level of damage that you're doing by your natural motion. Right? Now, if I stab, I don't necessarily have to pull it. You know, I can still go in and straight out, but it's a lot trickier because this arc creates a tearing motion. All right. So, concepts. A little bit of moralism, because I never get into that. Right? So, you know, edge in, edge out, blade up, blade down. These things provide different avenues and opportunities for you, right? The edge out, in your regular hold a knife grip, right, hammer grip, that really has the most functionality of all these things. You have the option to slash from all angles. You have the option to stab and retract. You also have the option to stab in and rip out, right? The only thing you can't do is like this big overhead thing, right? You have to have this, right? But it doesn't mean you can't do that, right? It's still overhead, it's just not straight down, right? So with this, and then the unzip grip, like I was talking about the other day, this functions specifically to tear, right? If it goes in, it's going to tear out. So you gotta pay attention and be conscious and aware of what you're setting up with your own actions. All right. So that's all that. I'll keep making more of these because I like making videos. It's kind of fun, and you guys seem to like it. If you have questions, pop the questions into the comments. If it's on YouTube, comment below. If it's on Facebook, throw a comment in, send me a message. I'm happy to talk about it, right? I'm not a legal expert. I don't pretend to be, but I am pretty damn good with one of these. So I'll answer those questions and I'll send you to my lawyer. Shout out to Todd Leneve, defense attorney par excellence. All right. So thanks guys. I'll see you.